You ever get that feeling? That little voice in your gut that tells you something someone's saying is just not right? We're all fascinated by this idea of becoming a human lie detector, of being able to see a lie the second it's told. So let's dive in and really separate the Hollywood myths from what the science actually says. So let's start with a number, 54%. What is that? Well, after hundreds of studies, it turns out that's the average person's accuracy when it comes to spotting a lie. 54%. That's basically a coin flip. But what if there were secrets, actual techniques that the pros use that could help you blow those odds out of the water? And that's the big promise, isn't it? The idea that if you just learn a few secret tricks, you can turn into a walking polygraph test and catch every single lie. It's an awesome thought, and it's really tempting, especially when you think about just how often we might be getting deceived. Now look, I know what you're thinking. 200 times a day? That sounds absolutely insane. But whether the number's that high or not, it taps into this feeling we all have. We're constantly dealing with stories, from little white lies to really high-stakes stuff, and we all just want to know what's real. This deep desire to know the truth has created a whole industry around so-called tells, those supposed dead giveaways that someone is lying. So let's run through the classic checklist, the one you've probably heard a million times. We're always told to watch the body, right? Are they touching their face a lot? Does their voice start to crack? Or maybe they're doing that thing where they nod yes while saying no. Even stuff like leaning towards the door could be a subconscious sign they just want to get out of there. These are the classic physical red flags. And then, of course, there's what people say. A liar might use all these vague, wishy-washy words like probably or I guess to give themselves an out. Or they'll overuse phrases like to be perfectly honest with you, trying way too hard to sound credible. And the big one, of course, is when their story just doesn't add up when you ask them to repeat it. Okay, but here's the twist. If it were really that simple, if all you had to do was follow a checklist, wouldn't we all be expert lie detectors by now? Yeah, the scientific reality is a lot more complicated, and this is where most of us get it totally wrong. So the biggest myth we need to bust is that there are universal tells. This idea that there's a specific action, like touching your nose, that always means someone is lying. The reality, what actual FBI agents and polygraph examiners use, is that you have to look for a deviation from a person's baseline. So what in the world is a baseline? Well, think of it as someone's normal setting. It's how they act when they're totally relaxed and not feeling any pressure. How fast do they usually talk? What are their normal hand gestures? You've got to figure that out first, because once you know what's normal for them, then you can spot when something's off. A person who's usually chatty, suddenly going quiet and still, that's the red flag, not the quietness itself. Okay, but what about those super quick, involuntary facial expressions we've all seen in TV shows? The ones that are supposed to reveal the absolute truth in a split second? Well, that brings us to the very popular and very misunderstood world of microexpressions. A microexpression is basically an emotional leak. It happens so fast, sometimes in just 1/25th of a second, because our emotional brain reacts faster than our thinking brain can stop it. But here is the single most important thing to remember. It reveals a hidden emotion, but it does not tell you why they're feeling that emotion. And just to be clear, this isn't some made-up junk science. This stuff goes way back. It builds on Charles Darwin's work, and it was famously proven by a researcher named Paul Ekman. He went to Papua New Guinea, found a tribe that had been totally isolated from the rest of the world, and discovered that their expressions for happiness, sadness, and fear were exactly the same as ours. They're universal. So, if they're real, what's the problem? The problem is a huge, critical mistake in thinking called the Othello error. In Shakespeare's play, Othello sees that his wife Desdemona is afraid, and he just assumes she's afraid because she's guilty of cheating on him. He completely misreads her emotion, and it ends in tragedy. And that right there is the perfect example of the trap we can all fall into. Think about it like this. That flash of fear you see on someone's face, it could absolutely be the fear of getting caught in a lie, for sure. But it could also be the fear of an honest person who is terrified that you're not going to believe them. The facial expression is identical. The emotion is real, but the cause is a total mystery. And just assuming you know the cause is the Othello error. So, if we can't just rely on a simple checklist of tells and microexpressions can be misleading, what actually works? Well, the key is to stop hunting for lies and start gathering more information. And for that, we need to open up the Real Detectives Toolkit. There are some seriously powerful, expert-backed strategies you can use.
Okay, the first pro strategy is built on a very simple truth. Lying is hard work. Seriously, it's mentally exhausting. A liar has to invent a fake story, remember all the fake details, and act normal the whole time. So investigators use techniques to increase this cognitive load. Ask them to tell their story backward. Jump around the timeline with your questions. It forces their brain to juggle way too many things at once, and that's when the cracks in a fake story start to show.
The types of questions you ask can also be a total game changer. A general question like, "How's the project going?" is way too easy to dodge. A better question assumes everything is fine. But researchers from places like Wharton say the best questions assume there's a problem. Like, what are the biggest problems the project is having? This forces the other person into a corner. They either have to tell you the truth or they have to invent a whole new lie right there on the spot. And here's a point from the FBI that might actually surprise you. The good cop approach is often way more effective. Instead of being aggressive and accusatory, being empathetic and building a connection can make people feel safe. You create an environment where telling the truth feels easier than keeping up the lie. It's about encouraging truth, not just pouncing on lies. So, where is this all heading? Well, believe it or not, the future of lie detection might not be human at all. Researchers are training AI to do what our brains just can't: analyze thousands of data points all at once. While we're struggling to track maybe one or two things, an AI can process tiny changes in vocal tone, super fast muscle movements in the face, and word choice all at the same time. And the results? They're starting to get way, way better than that 54% coin flip. So, after all of this, after debunking the myths and looking at the real strategies, we're left with one last really crucial question we have to ask ourselves. Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't really to become some kind of human polygraph so you can point your finger and yell, "Aha, liar." The real goal is to get better at gathering information and understanding the full picture. It's about using these tools to get closer to what is actually true. And that's the thought I really want to leave you with. Is your goal to become a better lie detector or a better truth seeker? Are you just looking for a shortcut to catch people? Or are you trying to build the skills to genuinely understand what's really going on? Because the difference between those two things, that's everything.